Top 10 CIA myths. This is coming from the CIA website. This is very interesting and entertaining, and I will further elaborate and provide my own insight as somebody who's earned a master's degree in global affairs from New York University and traveled to 90 nations and lived in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Europe. Here from the CIA website, cia.gov. Once again, myth number one, the CIA spies on U.S. citizens. So they're claiming that the CIA does not spy on U.S. citizens, and I beg to differ. I dare to say, if necessary, if needful, if given to protect the United States and its interests, we will most certainly spy on the United States. Does it blanketly spy on everybody? No. More so the FBI will do that. That's the Federal Bureau of Investigation and National Security Agency, as I understand, and even local police, when they have a red flag pop up or some informant tell them or some local citizen communicate in concern, and rightfully so. I have no problem with that, or any other agency spying on me to protect our country. But as Edward Snowden, a former CIA officer, said when he leaked information about the CIA and the NSA, he said sometimes the spying and the espionage is excessive and it's not in the interest of Homeland Security. It's just intrusive and it violates our civil liberties and the U.S. Constitution in and of itself. So something to think about. Myth number two. The men and women who work for the CIA are spies and agents. Well, not all of them are spies and agents. Some of them work for the CIA agency in different forms and fashions, and maybe don't work entirely in security policy or espionage. But at the same time, maybe when working abroad, they can have a job as an educator or a agriculturalist or some corporate position. And that could be what they call a cover to give them some means of which to not look like a CIA agent and thereafter do some investigations and work and espionage on the sly, and provide in due time information as it's gathered. That's intelligence when living and working abroad. So it's not always so obvious, and it doesn't happen so immediate and quickly. It takes a lot of time and laying low, and in the opportune time, maybe when he or she leaves the country, they go back to the United States and inform on these other countries that they've been spying on. So I don't necessarily applaud or encourage all of this, but all countries do it that have a lot of power, economically speaking, and militarily. The big ones, Russia and China and the United States and others. But Edward Snowden himself, who lives in Russia, has stated the United States does it more than everybody else. So instead of pointing the finger at other countries, we may want to take a good look at ourselves here in the United States and concern ourselves with our own behavior, because oftentimes we're more guilty than everybody else, and they've learned our wicked ways from us, and maybe they're just seeking to protect themselves from our own wrongdoing. Myth number three, all CIA officers recruit and handle agents. So this is a very clever way to call this a myth, because they use the three-letter word all. All is usually never correct. So maybe some CIA officers recruit and handle agents, but not all. So just because all do not does not mean some would not or could not or may not be involved already in this capacity. So certainly some CIA officers will recruit and handle agents abroad, but not all. So that's a cleverly well-written myth. And then once again, we see in myth number four on the CIA website, all CIA officers are quiet, mysterious, and live undercover and where they work. Most certainly all do not, but some, and maybe even arguably many, do. Okay, myth number four, the CIA has law enforcement authority and all CIA officers carry guns. Again, the word all is cleverly used here. Not everyone who works for the CIA carries a gun, and nor do they need to, and oftentimes it's more of a distraction or a deterrent or a red flag when doing so, because if you carry arms or weapons or guns abroad, people will immediately identify you with the military or some form or fashion, perhaps with the government, and maybe put up a guard or a barrier, relationally so, and not want to engage and converse with you and share information with you because they may be suspicious of you. So certainly all CIA officers and enforcement agents and authorities do not carry guns, but most certainly they still have great power and influence and abilities and skill. So by any means, we should not think that some do not carry guns, because they certainly can and Just because somebody doesn't have a gun doesn't mean they can't kill you, and they're not capable of harming you in some form or fashion. There's many ways to do so without a gun. Myth number 6. The agency operates independently and is not held accountable to anyone. Well, there is a degree of accountability to the United States, but there's also immunity when you operate globally. In the United States, the government typically does not hold our military or our intelligence agencies very accountable, but yet we all have to answer to the United Nations ultimately. Sadly, it doesn't have a lot of teeth, doesn't have a lot of enforcement or jurisdiction or ability to punish anyone unless the nations of the world rally together and protest and adamantly demand accountability. But nonetheless, even in Nuremberg in Germany after World War II, not everybody who was committing crimes against humanity was punished, although they should have been. Some escaped to Argentina and other countries and were able to take refuge abroad and hide from accountability for their wicked ways. So certainly not everyone is accountable, but at the same time, not everyone is able to escape accountability. Myth number 7, working at CIA will earn you fame and recognition. Well, working anywhere most likely will not earn you fame and recognition, and only a very few gain that working for the CIA, and that's not usually their first and foremost motive for working for an intelligence agency, because with doing so, you have to lay low. Myth number 8, the CIA makes foreign policy. No, the U.S. President, Congress typically make foreign policy, but the CIA can work covertly to fulfill it. Myth number 9, all CIA officers are fluent in multiple languages. No, not necessarily. Many CIA officers are fluent in 1 or 2 languages, not multiple. So they may know English and Chinese, or they may know English and Russian, or they may know English and Arabic. So multiple is somewhat of a distraction or a extension of their linguistic skills. Usually they focus on one language, and it could be by reason of birth, or maybe their parents speak another language and they've grown up speaking another language themselves, or perhaps they specifically were trained and learned another language educationally, academically in school, college, university. Myth number 10, as we come to a close, and I apologize for my allergies as we enter springtime here in Florida in February. It's so warm already. Myth number 10, CIA officers are the keepers of all government secrets. Once again, that little clever 3-letter word, all, is very deceptive and misleading. The CIA can certainly hold government secrets, but not all of them. There's many different branches of government. I worked at Ground Zero in the World Trade Center the first week of 9/11, providing rescue relief and support with the Salvation Army, and I've also remembered, having written a book about this topic and researching, intelligence agencies such as the FBI, the CIA, others don't always share intelligence with one another. They would like to keep the glory and the fame, sometimes when they do well and stop terrorists. So that being said, because they don't always share information and they do keep their secrets kind of close to the belt and the vest, sometimes that actually can be a reason for why terrorists are successful at perpetrating crimes against our citizens here in the United States, as it was September 11th in 2001. So certainly CIA officers are not keepers of all government secrets. They only have specific influence and freedom to work in a specific area and expertise based on their delegated authority.